Okay, continuing with the layers of being. The next layer is the formed personality. Now, formed personality is a layer that is created from before birth, as soon as your parents know if you're a boy or a girl, or as soon as you're born, but probably before birth because you're, the parents, the home, everything is already there before you arrive. And that keeps going and forming until you're 10, 12, early teens. So this layer is something that is put on you. Now, your body, to an extent, is put on you by the way you're raised. If your parents are very sporty and active, or if they're more sedentary and they like just watching TV every night, so then that develops your body to be, more physically active or a more sedentary type. If you'll develop more muscles, better reflexes, or if you'll be just a little bit chubby and slow moving and so on. Depends on how you are raised as a baby, by what things they make you do as far as physical activity. All right, so there is an extent, and then of course, as we said, it depends the body you're born into, and my gosh, what is that? The not genealogy, genetics, the genetics, okay, of whatever your body inherits from your parents. Now, formed personality has an interesting characteristic that, although you get it from your parents, you're actually getting it from generations back, because the formed personality, is when you're a young child. It forms your personality, and then you will give that to your children. So you get it from your parents, but your parents got it from their parents, who got it from their parents, who got it from their parents, and so on. So your formed personality is, in a way, something that's generational, many generations. The formed personality is basically everything that makes you you. You, the person, okay? Now remember, we're not talking about you, the essence, the spark, which is asexual, agnostic. It doesn't have any preferences, any thoughts. It's just energy. It's like electricity. Electricity doesn't really care what device you plug into it, what lights you turn on, or if you stick a hairdryer into the plug while you're sitting in the bathtub and it electrocutes you. Electricity doesn't really give a damn about anything. It just is. And spark is similar in a sense, where it just is. It is not of a religion, a culture, a sex, anything. No sexual preference, nothing at all. So that's the spark. Now, formed personality is that it's formed like a garment that is sewn onto your skin. So your formed personality is a garment sewn onto your spark. So is the body, in a way. The other levels that will follow are not as embedded in you, and they're much easier to change. The body, most difficult to change. The formed personality, very difficult to change, but possible. As the body, certain things can be changed. As we proceed through each layer, there's easier to change more of it. Okay. But formed personality, be forewarned, is difficult to change, however, can be changed because it is formed. Even though the garment is sewn onto your skin, it is still a garment that can be taken off if we pull off the stitches. All right, so I want you to know that the task is difficult but feasible. Okay. So formed personality is everything about you. The best way to explain it is that if you are born to white, Christian, let's go to the extreme, narrow-minded, prejudice, arrogant Americans who are full of themselves with their egos and shallow personalities, just to give you an extreme. You're born into that family, wealthy and so on. But on the day of your birth, from the same parents, the same hospital, everything identical, okay, that your birth. But as soon as you're born, or in that day, you're taken to India and given to parents in Gujarat, which is a city near Bombay, province near Bombay in India. And they raise you as their own child. Now, Gujaratis are vegetarians. They speak Hindi. They're Hindus, and it's India. It's totally different, right? Very humble people, very sweet, very generous, very quiet, very humble. And you're raised by them. So the first thing is, you're not going to speak English, you'll speak Hindi, and you will have an Indian accent. If you can learn to speak English, you will talk with an Indian accent. Your head will be wobbly, your hands will go like this when you're talking, and you'll be really a Hindu, you'll be a vegetarian. You won't say vegetarian because that's American. You'll say vegetarian because that's how Indians talk. So you'll be a vegetarian, you will eat vegetables, you will not be eating meat, you will not be killing animals, you will be a very humble person, you'll be very polite, very sweet, very generous, be a wonderful person. Totally opposite to those white American parents. Even though your body is the very same body. So that's how people get formed. You're formed by where you grow up. And there's plenty of Indians who you meet, like Indians from India, and they're born and raised in America, and they're as American as you can be. Not, so American. Their accent, their attitude, their mannerisms, really. There was, in Quebec, in Montreal, where it's French Canadian and what I call communist. If you're an immigrant, you have to learn Quebecois French. You can't learn English. You can't go to English school. And it's the funniest thing. You go into a Starbucks and there's this tiny petite Asian girl, looks like a little doll. She's so petite, and you get this immediate expectation of what her voice will be like. Beautiful, tiny, cute, and she goes, "Bon, comment ça va là? Qu'est-ce que tu veux?" Because she talks like a French Canadian. Because that's where she grew up. Okay. So, your form personality is totally fictitious in the sense of Buddhist view of reality, which is reality is something that's permanent, eternal. So energy is reality. The spark is reality. But the body and anything that will change over time or die and be destroyed in some way is not real. Buddha's view of real or illusion is a question of permanence. And I don't care if it's 1,000 years, that's not permanent. Permanent is eternal. So your form personality is an illusion. It's not real. Who you are is not real. You're not really you. You're a simulation. You're a creation. You're a piece of glass that has been molded into a certain shape and then will be broken and recycled one day. Okay. So basically that's what you are. That's your form personality. You get that from your parents. Okay. Then you go to school, and then you get bullied or you get admired based on your body and your intelligence. You'll be ignored, you'll be ostracized, or you'll be raised up as the star that everybody loves. And that, again, alters and forms your personality. Will you have very low self-esteem? Will you have very strong self-esteem? Will you become totally self-centered? The pretty little girl who everybody wants to be around and gives her presents so she never has to do anything, one could say becomes a little bit self-centered, usually. At least that's what we stereotype in the movies, isn't it? So your schooling, how you're treated in school, how your teachers treat you, the intelligence, your physical body, how it gets you to perform in sports or so on, All of that will determine how people are treating you, and all of that is going to continue to affect and create and form your personality. Point is, your personality is formed due to the circumstances in your life. Now, you probably heard all this already, but it's necessary to just give you this background to try and drum it in, that there's nothing real about you. All these things about find who you are, are generally looking for who you are as who you are. In other words, your personality. I'm not interested in who you are as a person. That means absolutely nothing. I'm interested in the spark. And that's all you should be interested also. Imagine if we never related to anyone as a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian or a black or an Asian or a white or this or that, and we related to everyone as a spark. What a world, eh? No more prejudice, no more passports, no more immigration rules, no more hatred, assuming everyone lived purely like a spark would live and wasn't a criminal or or any of the other stereotypes that come with the cultures. And that's it. Think about the stereotypes of a culture, and you say, well, that's wrong to be prejudiced. How could people have that kind of a stereotype that Indians are this way or the Chinese are that way or so on? Well, you know what? Stereotypes are created based on experience. So if you talk about someone from mainland China and you say they're loud, rude, obnoxious, steal everything from the hotel rooms when they travel, have no regard for anyone else, or extremely pushy, it's not being prejudiced. It's a statement of fact. Go to China. You'll find out. That's what it is. So we have to accept that the stereotypes are there because those people are born in that country and raised to be that way through the circumstances of the events that they grew up in. And had that individual been born in another part of the world, they would be a totally different person. Do you eat with cutlery or do you eat with your fingers? Here in Malaysia, the Malays, the Indians, always eat with their fingers. Chinese eat with a fork and a spoon. You'd be amazed. In Malaysia, you can't get a knife in a restaurant. They only have forks and spoons. And they struggle cutting a whole piece of chicken with a fork and a spoon. And I'm like, guys, there's such a thing as a knife. Why not? Nope. This is the way we do it here. Now, think about that. Try next time. Get a whole piece of chicken or a steak and use only a spoon and a fork, no knife, and eat. And then see how difficult that is compared to using a knife. Now think about that people in Malaysia refuse to use a knife. They would rather struggle with a fork and a spoon. What are the limitations on life when we insist on maintaining the habitual patterns of our form personality because that's how we've been raised, instead of breaking those patterns and adapting to what is always the best thing to use at the moment? There's some religious Christians I know, and they refuse to go to Egypt. Why? 2 reasons. It's a Muslim country, and they pray to idols, so they won't go to the country. So their formed personality and narrow mind prevents them from the experience of seeing the pyramids and the Sphinx. They have restricted the potential of their life experiences due to their formed personality. So our work in this layer, to break apart this layer, is to see how there is absolutely nothing real about me. You're not real. You're only formed. And we have to do that through shocking examples. And the question is murder. Not just murder, but murder of your own daughters. Okay. How does that sound? Murder your own daughters. Shocking, isn't it? And yet, this Afghanistan man who moved to England with his family felt there was nothing wrong with murdering his 3 daughters for something like, I believe they wore blue jeans. So to him, that was perfectly acceptable, because in his culture, this is perfectly acceptable, and he would never be punished in Afghanistan for doing that. He had happened to have moved to England and did it in England, so obviously he got punished. If murder your own daughters can be seen as acceptable without any thread of guilt or remorse by not one, but billions of human beings, imagine the power that controls you by your formed personality. So this is what I want you to think about, is how much your formed personality has an effect on your life, the way you eat. For example, sushi. Do you like sushi? Or do you consider it disgusting because it's raw fish? Some people will not, Westerners will not travel to Asia. Why? Because of the food. The food is too weird. Amazing. You know, so many little things affect you and your decisions every day because of your formed personality. I admit it's very hard for me to eat a bug, a cockroach or a grasshopper or a spider. I don't think I've broken past that level of my formed personality, and yet many people do. They love these bugs. You know, in Thailand, you know how Americans or Westerners, you have French fries, right? Well, they have grasshoppers. They cook like French fries, nice and crispy, and and then they get it in a little paper thing and eat these grasshoppers. So the layer of your formed personality is extremely stifling. It begins when you're too young to know the difference, when you're too young to realize that you're being formed. I remember seeing a mother and her kid, maybe 5, 6 years old, in New Zealand, in Auckland, and the mother wanted the kid to eat something, and the kid said, "No, I don't like that." And the mother said, "Yes, you do. You love this." And the kid looks and says, "I do? Okay." And he took it and he ate it. "Mommy told me I love it." "Okay, so much for what I think." So every taste, everything about you is fictitious. You're striving your whole life to find yourself. You're finding, who am I? And that's the worst thing you can do, because you're always looking in the wrong place. You're always looking for who you are based on your formed personality. Because when you say, I'm trying to find who am I, you're saying it from the point of view of, who am I, a white Canadian or a New Zealander or a Maori, the natives of New Zealand, so-called natives of New Zealand, or a black, an African, a Chinese, an Indian, whatever. You're always saying, who am I? Find my real self. Always based on the layers of your body and your formed personality. And that's why people never find themselves. Because your self is a spark. The rest of it's all an illusion. Okay? The formed personality is who you see yourself to be, as if it is really you. It's who you think you really are. But in fact, it's total imagination. It's not who you really are. Okay? Now, I had one customer when I had my photo stores, my photo labs, and he was a photographer. He was an older man at that time. And he told me his story. He said his father was a lawyer. His grandfather was a lawyer. They had a very big, prestigious law firm. And of course, he grew up and was sent to law school to be a lawyer. And within 6 months or a year, he became fatally ill. He was going to die, hospitalized. And the doctor said to him, look, man, you got to take a year off work. The stress of this job is just too much for you. You need a year off work, or you're going to die very soon. And he was a young man at that point, right? 30 or something. So he took the year off work, and he practiced his hobby of photography. And he became very healthy and very happy. And then he realized that his spark wanted to be a photographer, not a lawyer. And then when I met him, and he was my customer, he must have been about 70 or something, and he had lived a very happy life as a photographer. So your spark wants to be something. Your form personality tells you to be something else. Now, how many people are miserable? My accountant in Montreal, miserable. Every time I met this guy, he did nothing but complain about his profession. He's a partner in a very big accounting firm, and he hated it. Absolutely. Just kept, I hate this profession. I hate accounting. I hate this. I hate this. So, quit. You're a rich man. You can quit now. No, the money is too good. Another friend of mine, she is 51, 52, in health condition, could die very shortly. Psychiatrist is very concerned that she is suicidal. That's how depressing and miserable her business is making her. She won't quit. She says the money is too good. She travels five-star hotels, first-class plane. She meets famous people in her job. She won't give it up. I said, look at your health. It's terrible. You're depressed. You're miserable. You're drinking heavily. What's the point? You're going to die in a couple of years. Why bother? Why continue? He says, no, I can't give up the luxury. Can't give up the money. Okay? So there you go. There's your motivation is dying because you're doing something that is not in accordance or harmony with your spark. Now, perhaps you need to keep the job for the money, and it's not that super rich job, but you need the money. Whatever your job may be. It's fine, but make sure you're spending enough time doing what you love to do. Another one of my students in Colorado, she was a PA for a CEO at a big firm, big corporations in New York. And she became severely depressed, got a divorce, and moved from New York to Colorado. And what it turned out, she loved drumming and actually being a clown. Clown, whole thing, playing around with children. I said, how could I do that? My parents would never accept this, and this is so weird. Anyhow, I got her to do it, and she ended up, last time we spoken, well, this is many, many years ago also, she has her own television show. Never mind that she made a living as a drummer and a clown, but even so good, she got her own TV show. All right, so there's the spark. The spark has a nature. The form personality generally, well, depending on if you're a happy person full of energy and motivation, or you're a depressed person with no motivation and no spark, your profession is very wrong for you. All right, that's one thing of your form personality. Your form personality says you need a lot of money to live. You know what? I've worked with people who thought they needed $10 million to retire, and it turns out $2 million would have been enough. Right? So again, what does your form personality think you need to retire? What does it think you need to survive? What does it think you need as a place to live, as a clothing, as a style, as an image, and so on? All of these things have to be questioned, all right? So there's something. Now, another thing is, how does your form personality affect you and other people in respect to your interaction with other people? So you're a Brit with perfect, impeccable manners, and you meet someone on the internet dating who's Hong Kong, and she's absolutely wonderful, and you're chatting and all of this, and it's fantastic, and you're going on like this for months, and video calls, and it's fantastic. And then you meet, and you go for dinner. The whole time through the dinner. Because Hong Kong people eat with their mouth open, make loud noises, and burp while they're eating. Because that's normal for their culture. So you as the Brit are going to say, oh my God, this is disgusting. And for this difference in formed personality, which is not something real to the spark, you will walk away from what could be a wonderful relationship. Now, you've not just hurt yourself, you've hurt the other person too, because they've lost the opportunity for a great relationship. So we can look at it in different ways. We can say that the British cannot accept the Hong Kong culture, but the Hong Kong can accept the British culture. See, so you've got interesting things here to look at with tiny little aspects of your personality, your manners, and so on. How that is making you decide if a person is good or bad. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you want to stay friends or not? So many little things about your life are affected by your formed personality. Now, another thing your formed personality does, it gives you opinions. And those opinions are often wrong in the sense that it's wrong to say someone is bad because they have bad table manners. Can't say that's a bad person because they have bad table manners for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's really ultimately irrelevant. And secondly, it could change. But I know many people who will. My late partner, she was Chinese, and we traveled through Switzerland. And it was hilarious. We both laughed at it because we have the same attitude. We checked into this hotel, and the hotel included dinner in the restaurant. And there's an empty table, and it was all Swiss, white Swiss people. And we tried to sit down at one table, and the lady at the next table said, no, go over there. Because she was Chinese. Not that lady, my partner was Chinese. And it's just like, no Asians sitting next to me. So that's what I mean by wrong. Come on, I'm just sitting at the next table. And you don't know if she has bad manners or not. So when you do things that are based on your formed personality, which is that kind of person is bad, without knowing, your spark knows that's wrong. So what happens is your formed personality has a subconscious sense of guilt. And that guilt builds up because you know you're a bad person. You know you're wrong. And so as such, being wrong and hurting or looking down on another person not only is bad for them, it's bad for you, and you feel guilty. Your self-esteem gets lower and lower and lower. So your parents have given you a lot of fixed opinions, prejudices, which are wrong. You spend your life as a young person growing up with these ideas, and then you are developing a lot of guilt, which is lowering your self-esteem. All of this is making that formed personality layer very thick and opaque, so no oxygen is getting through. And with all of that, what happens is to deal with the guilt, you have to shut down from seeing yourself. Otherwise, you would feel terrible if you saw how guilty you were. So your mind shuts down. This is a topic that's very detailed in the All Is Mind course. All right, so I won't go into it too much here, but the All Is Mind work, that really goes into a lot of detail about this and how it works. So your mind shuts down from seeing how guilty you feel. Now, what happens? Blinders, no light passing through, no light, no oxygen. Spark is dying. So everything you do that causes you a sense of guilt is making that layer thicker. and cutting off more oxygen, which cuts off motivation, spark for life. So one of the things you have to be very careful of is never doing anything that you will feel guilty about, because that is killing your motivation for life, for anything. Okay? So look for that. Now, let's just go now to the exercise. All right? So we've understand how the form personality really is a thick layer. Now let's work on breaking through, changing it. There are many easy, obvious ways you can work on that. Breaking any habits, questioning any fixed opinions, watching how you judge people. There's a lot of things. Everything that's examine anything that is from your parents, from your culture, from your school. So the exercise helps you with that. And it is this: consider all your opinions, your preferences, your likes and dislikes, and every action that you do or say, and see how it affects another person. So things like the date with the Brit in the Hong Kong, my action is to not talk to this person because of their bad manners. So I am rejecting that person, and they may not even understand why. And even if you explain it, they'll say, well, what's your problem? This is how we are, So how does it affect another person? That's one column. And then, or person or creature or animal or the world or the planet, do you think that throwing plastic litter out the window of your car is okay, How does it affect anybody else? Or my Maori neighbor in Auckland, when I was building my house, he came over and he started stealing the timber. And I said to him, hey, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm just building a fence. To him, it was no issue that he is taking my property that I bought and paid for because he wanted to build a fence. There was no thought of how what he wanted was affecting me. So when you do something, think of how it affects another person. Then think of how it affects you. All right? All right. So you think about that. Now you consider if there's anyone on the planet who would view the same thing differently, even as a question of murder. I'm not justifying murder. I'm not justifying the Muslim attitudes towards women. That is totally unacceptable to me. You cannot treat another human being like a chattel or an animal or a possession. Totally unacceptable. But if I think about my view and their view and how they think that's totally acceptable, the point of that exercise is to shake the layer of form personality to say, what else is in me that is similar to that, in the sense that, do I have any attitudes that I find totally acceptable, which somebody else would find totally unacceptable? All right? If the Afghanistan man considers murdering his daughters acceptable, and I consider it unacceptable, what do I consider acceptable that somebody else would view with the same disdain that I view that man murdering his daughters? That's the point of the exercise of saying, what I believe, is there anyone else who would believe the total opposite? So that I question my own beliefs. I have to question everything about me, down to the foods I eat, the way I eat, my manner of speaking. Other things about the form personality are, do you interrupt other people when they are talking? Or do you quietly let them say what they want to say? When someone says something, they start to talk, do you interrupt to show you know more? Or to say, look, I've done that also? Or no, you're wrong, I'm right? A very interesting habit, which I've noticed in many countries, is that, and something you can look for, when you ask somebody a question or you're talking, they say, no, no, no. And then they start talking in the affirmative. Like, you'll say, well, that shirt you're wearing is very nice. No, no, no. Yes, I love it. It's my favorite shirt. This is the most bizarre thing in the world. And I see it everywhere. Everywhere. In many countries that speak English, so I know what they're saying. People start off with saying, no, 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 and then answer with the, why the no, no, no? Somehow that's become a habit. This bizarre, twisted way of thinking. So that's what we look for, is these kind of bizarre twists so that we can see the form personality. Now, let's say this, the form personality is like a screen, like a mosquito screen or something, a tray, and it's filled with sand. And the sand is thick enough that nothing gets through. You can't see through it, all right? So we want to shake the screen, and all the sand starts to filter and fall through, so the screen is clear and we can see through the screen. All right? So that's what we're trying to do with the form personality, is to let the motivation come through. So we have to look at everything about it because it's stifling your life so much. All right? So we question, not with acceptance of what the other person does, but in the questioning of would anyone see it in an opposite way, even if it is a matter of murder. It makes me question myself. The purpose is not to judge other people. The purpose is to judge yourself. You have to take the attitude that everything about you is wrong. Everything about you is about, I am a flawed person, very distorted. I'm like the potter who made a teacup with holes in it. I'm very defective, and I've got to find out how to fix this defect. Except rather than holes in it, I'm a sieve that's all clogged up. So we've got to find out how to open that. Okay? So there's a lot of different things that you've learned through your life, and that's what you have to examine. All right. So the form personality also limits your IQ and your intelligence, because if you are formed to be very arrogant, narrow-minded, then you're going to be interrupting people. You're not going to listen to the full sentence. You'll always think you know what they're going to say, and you don't hear everything they have to say. So therefore you lack learning, okay? If you've not been raised to read a lot or search for knowledge, then you're going to continue that habit and you will stay very limited in your intellectual capacity. All right? So your IQ will increase as well by breaking through your form personality. And that, of course, increases your experiences and then makes you more interesting of a person, which means people will like you better, which means it raises your self-esteem. And when your self-esteem is better, you feel more hope for life. When you have more hope for your life, you'll have better motivation for everything. Okay? All right. So there's an interesting thing I want you to look at. Now, one of the things is you need to do research, look, learn things, okay? In the Bible, which is Old Testament for Jews and Christians and perhaps a lot of others, there's two paragraphs I want to point out to you in the book of Genesis, okay? Google this. So you look for the whole paragraph, just paragraph, few lines. But Google Genesis 12.11.16. Okay? Genesis 12.11.16. Just put that in Google. You'll get the paragraph. In the Bible, there are references, and this first reference is to a man considered a saint and beloved of God, like God's favorite, who sold his wife to save his own life. So his life is threatened. He says, take my wife. Give me $50. Take her. Do what you want with her. Leave me alone. Very strange, isn't it? Then there's another one And that's Genesis 19.8. 19.8. In which this man gave his two young virgin daughters to a gang of wild men to do with as they pleased in order to save his two house guests. So, with examples like this embedded in the Bible, to which many people are raised to believe this is what we live by, how do things like this influence the formation of people's minds? Right? So you're going to have the same thing in the Quran. You'll have the same thing in probably in other traditions. Not all, but there's bizarre things throughout our life that are influencing us on a very deep subconscious level. And that's the sort of thing we're looking for, is to see where there has been an effect forming my personality to make me think and live in a certain way, which will clog that layer of formed personality as I go through my life, that prevents oxygen reaching the spark to keep me motivated, to keep me inspired, to give me hope that life can be good and exciting through old age. All right? So that's the idea of the formed personality and the way to break through to allow more oxygen to your spark, by really spending as much of your time as possible on every thought and every action with the beginning is, I'm no good. But I am no good. I am the formed personality. I am not the spark who's saying I'm no good. I am the formed personality saying I am no good. My personality, who I am as a person, ego, is no good. Is okay, but is very flawed, is very defective, is very closed, is very limiting. And that personality is affecting my body, because it determines if I'm going to be adventurous and go skydiving or camping. I was raised by a mother who's like scared of everything. Every spider, every bug, everything in the world she's petrified of. And so I, of course, grew up the same way. City boy, and everything has to be nice and clean and perfect. So what I did is I started going camping in deserts and sleeping outside, not even a tent, just out on a blanket or an open sleeping bag. I did that in Egypt, in Jordan, in the Grand Canyon, in several deserts in the U.S. Wow, where else? Nepal, India, all around the world. So I would go against what I feared, or go do what I feared tremendously, because I saw my formed personality tells me this is bad, no, terrible, terrible. And yet I knew objectively it was not. Right? She was also scared of knives. Now, and I was scared of knives until one day I was there and she said, I don't know what it is. I'm so scared of knives. And I went, aha, I now know where my fear comes from. And now I understand why I'm scared of knives, because she was. So now I love knives, collecting knives. Nice, beautifully made, So I do all kinds of things. And in fact, one time I came home after 10 days camping in the Grand Canyon, and 3 days later there was a scorpion in my bedroom. So he somehow got in my sleeping bag or my backpack, and I didn't even see it when I was unpacking, and it came home with me. So, wow, there was a scorpion in my sleeping bag or my backpack as I'm putting my hands in and out and nothing happened. Maybe I got lucky. But the point is, I have possibly 300-400 days camping outside in deserts, and nothing ever happened. But ask me when I was a teenager, and I'd say, you crazy? You do that, you're dead for sure. So my personality is bad. So flawed is so limiting. We have to take that attitude. And remember that when I say I am talking about my form personality, because it's all I can speak from, my ego, not my spark. If I can see how flawed the personality is and I can fix it, then I can get to the spark if it burns bright enough. So that's why I don't believe in the idea of I'm perfect, I'm wonderful, I'm fantastic. Very limiting. That's again form personality. It's extremely limiting. And the purpose is to make sure you never progress, you don't wake up. The Upanishads has a very interesting paragraph where Ramakrishna is saying that the gods do not want humans to awaken because the gods need these human animals to serve their purpose. So, according to Upanishads, we are designed to stay unconscious. And I found this in many other traditions, Gnostic tradition as well, Hermetic tradition, many traditions, mysticisms, religions, are saying that we're actually designed to stay asleep, to stay limited, because the gods don't want us to wake up. If we wake up, then we're free. As it says in the Bible, with Adam and Eve, God said, don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He didn't want us to wake up. And he said to whoever he was talking to, if he was the only one who's he talking to, but you can read that in the Bible also. Now that man has eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, we must make sure he never eats from the tree of eternal life, lest he become like us. God doesn't want us to wake up. God doesn't want us to become free. The gods need us to stay limited. And that's why the form personality is designed to keep us trapped and smother the spark so we never burn into a flame and awaken. So our work is to say, excuse me, pardon me, I don't accept. I want to wake up. So that's what we're trying to do. Okay, so you have to understand your form personality, your body, all of these things are done by the gods to limit us. So you're very defective, you're not wonderful, you're not great. You cannot say, I am a spiritual being, because who is saying it? Your ego personality. So accept that you're always functioning from this, so I am flawed. Now I can work on myself, knowing that. It's like, how to say it? It's like the doctor who had to operate on her own, what was it, liver or something like that she had, or appendix. I think, it was in Antarctic, and she was the last one there in Antarctic for the season, and she was alone, and I think she got appendicitis or something like that. She had to operate on herself because there was no one else to do the operation. Right? So it's the same thing. That's a true story, by the way, I believe. You can research it. You have to operate on yourself in order to come to life or stay alive, because you're dying slowly. Your motivation, your spark for life, your joy of life, all the crap that's affecting you in a negative sense is in your form personality and the other layers. We're going to break through all the layers and let light through so you can live. Okay? So there you go. Work on that, work on the exercises, and we'll continue with the next layers, which are much easier to work on changing. Every layer affects all the layers, all right? So we have to begin with body and form personality as much as you can, which makes it easier to work on the layers that are following. All right, good luck, and as always, any questions, please ask.